Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever it is that you are. My name is Spicy Paladin, and I am both honored and humbled to be presenting Death's Gambit Afterlife for your consideration for the big stage at GDQ. Death's Gambit is a game that I do not believe has appeared on GDQ before, and I am extremely hopeful that you will consider it, as it is a highly underrated and excellent Metroidvania. Originally came out in 2018, and it was a base version that was not particularly popular because it wasn't very good. And then in 2021, they released Afterlife, which made it a real masterpiece, and we'll be getting into that a little bit shortly. One point of order is that I speedrun this game on speedruns.com on the PlayStation because it is very, very fast due to faster loading times. However, the PlayStation version is not at all marathon safe. It has some issues with game crashes, save file corruptions, just choosing not to save the game at all. None of that is marathon safe, so if I am fortunate enough to be selected to perform this game for you guys on stage, then I will be running the Switch version, and as a result of that, we're running the Switch version for you here today, so you get a chance to see exactly what it would look like. So we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a second. 2, 1, go. All right, so a little bit more about this game. Just so you guys know, if I am selected, I would be happy to have a couple of commentators with me who would be providing a lot of the commentary while I focus on the game. But for this submission video, I will be doing a lot of talking throughout so that you, the games committee, are not just listening to dead air, and can have some confidence in my ability to comment on this game and speak on stage. As we get the game started here, we are going to go ahead and select our class and a starting item. The starting class, obviously a very important choice. The starting item, casually not as important, but super important for the speed run. We're going to be choosing the Sentinel for a very specific reason, and then we're going to use this time while the bad guy talks in the background to change our options. And then we are going to be selecting some crystal bombs here as he asks what memento we feel a connection to. Grab some crystal bombs, proceed, and we are off and running. The crystal bombs are going to trivialize the first two bosses of the game, and we choose Sentinel because it allows us to do a Great Hammer build. What makes the Great Hammer build so appealing to me is that the different weapons in this game scale off of different statistics. A lot of the weapons scale off of strength, most of the others scale off of finesse. The hammer is the only one that scales off of vitality, which gives us the ability to level up both our health and our damage output at the same time. Very, very efficient and therefore good for speedrunning, so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be riding our horse in here at the beginning for a bit of a downtime. Allows us the opportunity to hear this game's beautiful, beautiful soundtrack. Seriously, top soundtrack of all time for me, previously held in my personal opinion by Nier Automata, but this game has just amazing soundtrack, incredible voice acting, some of the higher positioned characters in the game voice acted by some popular voice actors named Matthew Mercer and Marisha Ray. And the game itself is just a particularly excellent Metroidvania with some high-level combat and a bit of platforming, but it is mostly combat that makes this game challenging casually. We're going to be moving right along here and doing this rolling for speed to start. Fortunately, we only use rolling for movement for about the first 6 minutes or so, because after we beat the second boss, we gain access to the air dash, and then we'll be zipping around all over the map. We grab this first crystal because to get off of this little tutorial island, so to speak, we got to grab 3 quick crystals just to show that we've gained some understanding of the base points of the game. Going to counter that attack, and what you saw there was a perfect block. So you can dodge roll through a lot of bad guys in this game. What I like to do more often is to time a perfect block. If you block at the exact right moment, you get the opportunity to do a counter, which does a lot of quick damage, and so we're going to be doing that often throughout the game. We also picked up a crow's feather. What the crow feather does is it allows us to instantly warp back to the last death idol we used, which is that death-looking statue that we just passed. Those are kind of the save points in this game. It's where we level up. Much, much, much later in the ending A run, we can use them to fast travel, and we're going to use them to traverse the map very quickly. When you use a crow's feather, it just teleports you to the last death idol that you used. So we'll be using a bit of manipulation to just skip certain death idols because we won't need to save, and then we will instead be able to fast travel back to a previous death idol that is a lot closer to where we're going next. So we're going to pick up another plume here. Those plumes are how we heal. We'll find several throughout the game. A cool aspect of this game is that you can actually augment your plumes to no longer have them available to heal, and instead use them to deal more damage. So we're going to use most of our plumes for that purpose and really only keep one for healing. Here's the first boss of the game. This is Ione. We're going to hit her a few times, slap her in the face with 4 bombs, hit her a couple times again, and that's the first boss. So thanks for coming, Ione. We appreciate it. We'll actually be seeing her quite a bit more. We're going to grab the rusty charm that she drops, and then we shoot on over to a short cutscene. So a couple other things I want to make sure that we get into for this game that you guys are aware of is that this submission is obviously for ending C, which is the fastest version of the game, and also the quote-unquote bad ending. I am extremely hopeful that we will consider this as a ending C run with a donation incentive for ending A. Ending A is where I am currently the world record holder on speedrun.com, and I am currently in second place for the ending C run on speedrun.com. So I'm hoping that my credentials allow me some consideration, and the ending A run is just my favorite run, particularly casually. The story gets crazy. We meet the true boss of the game who you don't even really see in ending C. Excuse me. We will have to go and refight some harder versions of bosses in order to get ending A. It's very, very cool. So in my separate ending A submission, we'll talk a little bit more about what that entails. But for this ending C run, we're just going to be beating all the bosses necessary, getting to the end, and calling it a day. But there is a point later in the run where if we were to be on stage, we would have the cutoff for the donation A incentive to where we would then veer off and start beating some heroic versions of bosses. That is the tougher refights that we have to do to earn ending A. And then we get into all kind of trippy late game stuff that you otherwise don't see. And it adds about 35 minutes of gameplay, which is extremely, extremely cool. So hopefully this ending C run would probably have an estimate of about an hour, and then should we meet the donation incentive to reach ending A, it turns into about an hour and 35 minute estimate or something like that. So we're going to knock out this first guy who's teaching us that a lot of bad guys will put themselves in a little purple shield, and when they have that purple shield, we can't do any damage to them until we use an ability to negate it. So we grab that first ability, use it to prove that we've mastered the tutorial of how to use abilities, and then we're going to very quickly just teleport out with the crow's feather and ride our horse on out of this little area now that we've grabbed all 3 crystals to move on from this starting point. We're also about to use the sword for the last time because shortly after the second boss that we're coming up to, we're going to change it out for that hammer. We just need to get to a certain merchant first to be able to buy it very shortly after this point. So we're just going to ride through this hallway. The horse is going to stop here because we can't ride the horse into the boss room. And this is the Owl King, the second boss of the game. We're going to start by just throwing the rest of our crystal bombs right in his face. And then we are just going to go ham on him, dodge that first attack, couple more slashes, avoid that, and that's Owl King. So as we very quickly waiting for this next ability to drop, go ahead and select our next level up ability on the skill tree. We do that while the ability is dropping to save time. And now we have the air dash. This is going to allow us to move around much more quickly. We still have to manage it. As you may notice, when we dash, the stamina bar in the top left does deplete with every dash. So we can't just dash indefinitely. We have to kind of time our dashes to dash, recover some stamina, dash some more, and get as much speed as possible. And I'm going to shush for just a second so you can see this beautiful opening cutscene and music that really introduces the game. There will also be a few points in this run where I might comment that this would be a good time for donations, because I will likely be speed talking throughout this entire submission so that you are all not listening to dead air. But of course we know that on stage we want there to be some time for donations. We want to be able to encourage more people to donate and raise some good money, so we will all be aware of that, both myself and my commentators on the couch. but for you guys in the submission run, we want to introduce you as well as possible. So we're going to dash through this area, drop down. We're going to grab our first boss journal right there. So what those books do, there's 2 for every boss, and we don't grab all of them, but for each one we do grab, we do additional 5% damage to that boss. So grabbing that book for the Bulwark means that when we fight the Bulwark, we will instantly do an extra 5% damage to it, and we'll grab one more to make sure we do an extra 10% damage to it by the time we get there. What we're doing right now is kind of doing just a quick run off the side to exchange something we picked up earlier for 3 firebombs. That is going to help save some time against another future boss who is notoriously slow. A sniper named Auriga who likes to jump down into the background and then just take pot shots at us while we are just forced to wait. And those firebombs will allow us to do a lot of damage off the top, and also for her to take some damage over time while she's in the background because she's on fire. We shoot up here to grab that Immortalite Stone. What that Immortalite Stone is basically just crystallized experience. Just crystallized experience. So we'll use that a couple of times in the run in order to level up. We're going to use our traps here to take out this merchant. Don't worry about her, she's fine. She just drops a cape that we use to further raise our vitality, because the more vitality we have, the less likely we are to die and the more damage we do. So now we're going to buy a bunch of crow's feathers so that we can repeatedly utilize the ability to use those crow feathers back to the last death idol we touched to save time. And for routing, we're going to buy the hammer and equip it, so we will be using that for the rest of the run. And we're going to shoot over in this direction to grab one more plume and the book for the Bulwark, the second book for the Bulwark, before we go off and fight that second boss. While we're traveling, I want to introduce one more interesting point of order that I think is going to be very interesting for our fans, because it's going to seem very dangerous, but I want you all to understand that it is actually extremely marathon safe. So when we defeat our next boss, we are going to gain the ability in our skill tree to gain double experience for activating permadeath. Now, obviously, permadeath is not something that would be considered marathon safe, but it's going to be exciting for the crowd. You know, if they are watching and know that if we die, the run is over, that can put us on the edge of our seat. But for marathon safety, not only do we have a bunch of safety saves backed up in the event that we need them, but also, should we die, it does erase our save file. But it is extremely easy for me to just simply press the home menu on the controller, go back to the Switch home screen, close the game, and then reopen the game and just reload our last save file. So if we die, the run is not actually over, not for us in a marathon setting. Instead, we just lose about a minute closing the game, reloading it, and getting back to where we were. Not that big of a deal, but it is extremely cool for the fans to see, oh my goodness, we're here on stage and we have permadeath. What happens if he dies? And of course, the gig will be up if I do die, because we'll see that everything's fine. But until then, it can be very scary, which is just fun and exciting for the crowd, I believe. And so that's what we're doing right now, is we are taking this dialogue time to actually cancel Death's contract, which takes a while, so you don't do it accidentally. So we do it while this guy's just talking in the background. But from this moment onward, if we die, our file is erased, hypothetically. But we're just going to menu out to the home screen and reload. But we're not going to die, so it's going to be fine. So this is the Bulwark. We start by dropping some traps on his foot, so bam, they all just activate right there. And now we are going to try to defeat this little blue thing before it blows up on us. And we are going to try to lay into this guy as quickly as possible. He's going to summon some reinforcements. He's going to summon some lightning. This is kind of the first trickier boss in the run casually. We're going to try to use this overhand slam. That's technically a combo finisher, but the reason you saw us unequip the bow is because if you use the button to fire your secondary weapon, typically the bow, and you don't have a secondary weapon equipped, then you simply just do a combo finisher. So bam, we're going to use that overhead combo finisher, slap just like that, very often throughout the run. Basically just that and our jump attacks, which are pretty quick. We very quickly menu to now get double essence. So from this point, we will be getting double essence for the rest of the run. And essence is, again, both our experience and our currency. So anything we need to buy utilizes essence, and then leveling up utilizes essence. So that is our money and our experience, and we get double for becoming mortal. So that the storyline goes that when we die, Death shows up, grabs our soul, takes us back to a death idol. So this isn't necessarily a game where when you die, you just reload. Instead, every death is canon, because when you die, death just swoops in and grabs your soul and takes you back to the next death idol, and you try again. But when we disable Death's contract, that means that's not going to happen. So if we die, the story simply ends. Super bad ending, we don't want that. Now you can see that laser kind of pointing on us. That's alluding to the next boss. That's that sniper. We're going to open that chest to get the haste aura, which is going to allow us to move very, very quickly. And we're going to run past the second clone of ourselves. I didn't comment on the first one because I was talking about something else. But there are these different clones of us at different points in the game, and each one is of the different classes you can select. This is the one for the Sentinel, and the reason why we come out of our way to fight this guy is 1, to grab his upgraded hammer and use that for the rest of the game, and 2, doing so will give us the Crushing Tide ability. Right there. So what that does is when we activate that ability, we get an additional 5% damage for 15 or 20 seconds, which is nice and adds up, and then also as we level up, we're going to increase that so it begins to stack. At a certain point, we'll be able to use it repeatedly so that we do an additional 25% damage. And further leveling it up, get to a point that when we are doing 25% damage, our attack speed is much, much faster. So we'll just get to slam down and rain havoc with our hammer. We're going to platform up here to get the first book for Auriga. It's the only one we're going to get because the next one's really out of the way. And now, before we go to Auriga, we're going to drop down into this kind of sewer-like area. This is to go buy an item we're going to need much, much later. And this is just the closer we get to it. Much later, there are going to be 3 locks that we have to get past. One of them requires fire damage to dispel, the other electric damage to dispel, and the third dark damage to dispel. We already have crystal bombs to knock out the electric lock. We have fire bombs to knock out the fire lock. And so from that little guy, who's actually one of my favorite characters in the game, but we're not going to get to talk to him and see why, we buy a Dark Empowerment Sigil, which allows all of our regular attacks to do dark damage for about 15 seconds, and that literally just exists to get past that to get past that lock later in the game. Now, as we enter this little church area, we're going to have a little chat with the next boss. We're just going to mash our way through here, and then once we're done, we are going to make sure we do what we do before every boss, which is switch our auras from the haste aura that allows us to move very, very fast to that fragile courage, which you just saw us equip. Now, what the fragile courage does is it boosts our vitality by 15, but breaks upon death. So we're not going to die, so that's not an issue, hopefully. And we're going to throw these 3 fire bombs at Auriga right off the bat just to do a huge chunk of damage, and she's going to continue to take damage over time while she's in the background pot-shotting us. Speedrunners don't like this boss battle because it's slow. She's just back there shooting. We're just hiding behind these tombstones, sipping our coffee, waiting for her to come back to where we can fight her again, and boop, there's the indication that she landed to our left, so we can shoot back over here and start laying into her some more. We like when she does that dash attack with her knife, because then we can, because when she does, then we can do our perfect block and do a counterattack for some nice damage. But there's only so much we can do to manipulate her and keep her from jumping back into the background again. When she does, we're just losing some time. We can see underneath her health bar that she's got 4 bullets, so I can kind of keep track of when I need to run to the next tombstone, and when she's out of ammo, and we can just know that she's coming right back in. So she reloads, we start laying into her again. She likes to go invisible, block, bam, bam, start wailing her down, and we're going to largely repeat this cycle of her jumping off into the background again. Hopefully that'll be the last time, while we get as many perfect blocks as possible and some aerial attacks. If we do the overhand slam against her, it can be a little slow and she'll probably shoot us in the face. So instead, we just like to do quick overhand swipes, because those are actually pretty fast for the hammer and is going to be one of our primary sources of damage. We also queue up the Crow's Feather because, as you may have noticed, we skipped a lot of death idols in the past 5 or so minutes. We actually haven't used a death idol since before the Bulwark, which was the last boss. And the reason we do that is because after this boss, we need to go all the way back to the beginning area of the game, and instead of walking, which takes minutes, we just simply don't use any death cycles between then and now, death idols, excuse me, so that after the short cutscene, we just use a Crow's Feather, head all the way back to Central Sanctuary, and save us several minutes. We're going to have a little chat with this boss we just beat up, find out maybe she's not so bad, but that storyline, we're not worried about that, and move into this area to see what she wants to show us. Now, the storyline of this game, part of it anyway, is that in this city is the source of immortality. Which sounds cool, but Death came and talked to us in the beginning and said, actually, immortality is bad. Death is a natural thing that needs to be allowed. So we are on his side right now in order to try to eradicate the source of immortality. But it's in there. So that's kind of the goal of the game, is we're going to need to collect these 3 keys to open the door to enter that castle and destroy the source of immortality. If we have the opportunity to play ending A, then before we go there, we're going to go back and refight 5 bosses that we've already beaten. They're heroic versions, which are much, much more difficult. And in doing that, we gain the opportunity to see the true boss. It's a whole other area of the game that we need to navigate through. It starts getting really trippy. It starts getting really creepy. There's some very cool and fun 4th wall breaks by the true boss. It's extremely, extremely cool, both casually and for a speed run. So once again, just a little plug. I hope that you all consider it. But we crow's feather all the way back over here to Central Sanctuary, re-equip the haste aura, level up, and now we are going to move on to the next boss, which is the Forgotten Gaian. Just a little bit of travel to get over there. We're going to slide on down here and avoid this ability that we don't want right there, so that we don't have to worry about picking it up and losing time, since we're never going to use it anyway, and just ride the horse to the next boss. During a marathon setting, this would be a good time for a couple of donations. Now, once we get here, we're going to pass by some of these other death idols because, surprise, surprise, once we beat the boss, we're going to crow's feather back to Central Sanctuary again because it's in the direction that we need to go. And we're all about saving time for routing, so we're going to skip that death idol. We are going to shoot over here and accidentally get hit in the face once to pick up those dark leather boots. Those are primarily boosting for finesse, which is useless to us, but it does have a slight boost of vitality, which we absolutely do want. As we get back into this scene, we quickly equip our Fragile Courage, which we're going to do before every boss, either that or an alternative that I'm going to describe here when we get to it, and put on those leather boots. Now, this boss can be fairly scripted. It can be difficult if you mess up the script, but otherwise we're just going to hit this foot 3 times, a little jump attack, and once you defeat the foot, that's where you start to see the weak point in that knee, and we're going to try really hard to defeat the boss through his knee before he stands back up and we have to do another cycle, which we're in good shape, and pop, we're all set. Now, if you don't one cycle that boss, you can lose a lot of time because he stands back up. You have to defeat the foot again. I mean, you lose about 20 seconds. Deal. It's not that hard, and if we do miss it, again, we lose about 20 seconds, no big deal. So now Ione's going to drop back down and chastise us again, because she thinks that we're being bad right now. She doesn't realize that we have everyone's best interest at heart. We'll learn more about that in ending A, and we crow's feather back. Boop. This is an example of a loading screen being a little longer on Switch than it would be on PlayStation, but again, just a few seconds, no big deal. And we're shooting on up over here. So now we're heading back to where that first clone was. We ignored him the first time. The second time, we're going to ignore him again because we don't really need anything he has. Re-equip my haste aura and then just shoot on over it here. Skip these guys and burn on through. Before we progress, we're going to drop down from this ladder that you'll see in just a moment and pick up some more fire bombs. That's so that we can use them for a specific enemy later in the game to speed run it, and then also for that lock that I mentioned earlier. And we're just going to quickly dash up and pass these ladders. There we go. And for this section, there's a lot of bad guys. We're just going to dash through them. I am keeping an eye on my stamina bar because that's exactly what I didn't want to happen, is running out of stamina right when I need to dash through some baddies, and then you get bonked by it. It happens, no big deal. And now we are in the boss room for the Soul of the Phoenix. We're going to equip the Fragile Courage once again, and we're going to take just a second to drop some more traps down so that when she triggers, she walks right into them and takes a bunch of damage, because that's funny and fast. So she's going to bop, and we're going to smack her on the head, get a couple of spin dashes in, and then she's going to spin to win. We're just going to wait for her. And we're going to try to get a couple of pot shots in before we try to get her stuck in a perfect block loop, like that. Bam. As she turns blue, we're going to get a few more shots in before she spins to win one more time. And then what we're going to try here is if we can get some perfect blocks in, we can get her stuck in a loop where she just stays doing this same set of attacks. Like that. She should do it again. Like that. Do it one more time. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish her off. We had an opening. She had a little bit of a hesitation. So while the next ability is dropping, we're going to quickly use the ability tree to save some time. And now we get that ability, which we're not going to use anyway, so that's fine. Dashing slow, so re-equip my haste aura, and we're moving on. Now there is a strat where we don't save at the next save idle in order to further manipulate an ability to fast travel via Crow's Feather to another area later in the game. It's a little riskier, so we're not going to do that. I'm also not convinced it saves much time, so we're going to go ahead and save here, level up. It's going to make the next couple of bosses a little bit easier, because they will go down faster, because we hit harder, and it also refills our traps, because I like to use traps on the next boss, and if we don't use the Death Idol, then we don't get them back. Slamming on down, we're going to just take care of this horse, because otherwise it's going to chase us all over the map. And speaking of chasing us all over the map, those guys that I just dashed past are kind of the bane of my existence. And this tutorial area is going to teach us that when those purple circles begin to just appear in the background, we have to stand in them for just a second to deactivate them, otherwise they will explode. The next boss of the game appears to try to stun us and just do a little bit of a death scare. We just hop over them and skip all that. Dash through this area. In order to hit this switch, it's going to activate these platforms so that we can now go back and rise up through that area. This area is actually deceptively difficult. If you don't just really dash through here fast, you can kind of get phantom hit by those guys. It's really rude. Ooh, speaking of really rude, I'm just going to miss this platforming. And of course, I could just re-record this submission until it's a perfect run. I'm hoping that we're of the same mind that I feel like it's a bit more pure and honest to show you guys a run that's not necessarily perfect, because things don't happen perfectly on the big stage. On the big stage, you need backup strats, you need to show that you can recover from a little bit of a missed input or a mistake. And I want to give you guys a genuine experience, so I'm hoping that we're open to that. We'll have just a few flaws. Hopefully we won't die, but if we do, that'll be fine too. We're going to trigger the next boss. He's going to talk to us while we drop some traps. Use that opportunity to do that and equip the Fragile Courage. So this is the Wraith King. Even though he hovers, he is going to trigger those traps. Bam. And he can do 3 attacks here. That grab is a good one because it's fast. Happy to see him do that twice. He can also swing his sword at us, which is fast. Outstanding. Or he can do a slower attack where he throws fire. He's no longer going to do that now that we just got him into his second phase already. So now he's just going to teleport around. We're going to try to get some perfect blocks in and otherwise just lay him out when he is available. Looking pretty smooth so far. And of course, we need about 1 or 2 more hits, and he's going to be teleporting really fast and not give us the opportunity to finish him off. He's just going to be rude like that. We'll make him pay for it. There he goes. So that's the Wraith King. And now we level up the ability so that when we use our Crushing Tide and gain additional hammer damage by using X, if we do that 5 times and stack it all the way to 25%, we also now swing much, much faster. So that's going to be great for some combos from some bosses much later in the run. So now we have the ability to, when we find these little flowers that are in the background, we get infinite double jumps for about 10 seconds, which is pretty cool. They're stationed at different points in the game to reach certain areas. We use this opportunity to equip the 3 things we're going to need to do the different types of damage for those locks that I mentioned earlier, because that's actually coming up pretty soon. But first we are going to head over here to grab another Immortalite Stone, and we're also going to go up to the next boss, which is a big, big doggo. And this is a part that I think will be fun for the fans, because we're supposed to fight this big, big dog, but who wants to fight dogs? We love dogs. Dogs are sweet. We don't want to fight dogs. And this dog actually has a much faster pacifist option. Instead of fighting him, we can just go give him a pet on the snoot, and he will give us an outstanding aura that will further increase our essence by 50%, helping us level up even more throughout the game. That was Fink. We won't worry about him right now, but we take him out because it skips a cutscene later, and he's definitively a bad guy. But getting back to my point, as we get back, approach this next boss, I think it'll be fun for the fans to build up the fact that we're coming up to a doggo fight, gonna fight a big mean doggo. Actually, we're just gonna give him a little pet on his nose, and then he's just gonna give us a present, and we don't fight him at all. And that's not only fast, but also great, because everybody likes a good doggo. We're gonna do some slams down here to be able to power through, get rid of this face before it bites us. We hit that one, we skip the middle one, and hit the furthest one just so we can hop up over here. And now we go into the boss chamber for Cusith, the big doggo. Now, if we don't get there quick enough, we can have to wait for a second cycle for the nose to be down low enough to give it a pet, but that's no problem. So we just run up, pet Cusith. He's a good boy. Gives us what we need. We crow feather out, and that is that boss. So now when we fight bosses, instead of equipping the Fragile Courage, which gives us plus 15 to our vitality, we're going to equip that Cusith's aura instead, which gives us plus 5 to vitality, but an additional 50% essence gained. So now, with having our Death's Contract destroyed and that aura equipped during boss fights, we're going to get double essence from being mortal and an additional 50% essence from that aura, which means we're going to be leveling up a lot and helps us beat things quickly. There's the fire lock, the electric lock, use this dark sigil we bought to break the dark lock. Now those 3 locks are open and we can progress nice and fast. This is a fairly late game area that looks and sounds a little bit scary. We're going to be fine. You're going to see smaller versions of the Owl King boss. That was the second boss that we fought in the game. There he is. There's a few more of them. We come here now because routing-wise, it's much, much faster, even though we're a little underleveled for this area. And again, that's not because we've necessarily skipped anything, but just because this is designed to be one of the later parts that we come through in the game. But for routing reasons, it's faster to just blow through here. We'll take care of the boss. Heal will take a little longer because we're not doing as much damage as we would if we came back much, much later, but that's fine. We'll grab the first book for Almavaro, the next boss, grab another plume. So now we can augment that extra plume to do an additional 5% damage all the time, and that book will give us an additional 5% damage against the boss. There's his second book, so now we'll do 10% damage against him. And we're going to do a quick save at this idol. Both for safety, but more importantly to augment that 6th plume and level up some more so we can do as much damage as possible to Almavaro and get through him as quickly as possible. Now this section is unique because the door to the next boss is locked by 4 locks. We have to beat 4 different little trials. And that's just defeating these 4 bad guys in these 4 corners. We just kind of drop in through the top over here to beat the left one, and then it's just harder versions of these bad guys. This guy, you can see, is dropping these little bombs every time we hit him. And if you notice in the top right, we are only at 70% max health now. And as we firebomb quick defeat this guy, boom, he's done. Now we have the penalty of healing uses 2 plumes instead of 1. And so it's this neat little area where as you unlock each lock, you get an extra handicap, making things more difficult. But we're not going to have any issue. Take care of that guy. Now rolling completely destroys your stamina bar, so movement's just a little slow. That's why we do that late. We're going to block that attack, hit him with the Crushing Tide to stun, overhand slam, 1, 2, and we're done. So there's all 4 locks. That door that we didn't even see yet opens, and now we can go to the next boss. So we're moving right along, moving very quickly. We're about to equip the bow for the second and last time in the game, so we won't get to use our combo finisher overhead slam for damage, which is unfortunate. Oh, not Fragile Courage, we want that one. And get our bow back on. There it is. And the reason for this is because this boss does a specific attack where there are 4 little blue orbs across the map, and if you don't take them out, they cause big, big problems, and having the bow equipped with auto-aim just makes that trivial, so it ends up saving a lot of time and effort to just have the bow equipped to take those out quickly, and we'll just hit the Galaxy Mage, not using our big overhand slam attack, and we'll just use our other attacks. Mostly perfect blocks, like that. There's 3. The way this boss works, you can see above his health bar, he's got 3 little shields. And what that means is that when you perfect block him once, you don't automatically get to do that awesome counter that does a bunch of damage. You actually have to perfect block him 3 times in order to do that, which is fine. There's one. There's two. And he's going to teleport around. Because we laid so much damage into him, he didn't feel like finishing his combo right there. That's fine. We're just going to roll past these electric lights, continue laying into him with our Crushing Tide. I'm going to hit him with the bow just out of habit because it's the same button. But as you can see, these blue spheres are just trivial when you have the bow, so that's great. Wait for him to come back, block, there's our combo. And we're moving right along. So we're going to kind of repeat this cycle. He's going to do his 3 attacks in different orders. We're going to try to perfect block them, get as many attacks in as we can in the meantime. And when he poofs himself, boop, like that, we just take care of the orbs and repeat the cycle. So this would be a good time for donations while we finish off the second half of this guy's health bar. In the meantime, we're going to try to hit him with the Crushing Tide as often as possible. It looks like we get one more. We should be able to do some quicker overhand slaps. And now that we're, past half health for this guy, this attack where he just rolls his red beams through us can kind of change direction on you. Sometimes he's rude about it in a way where you can't necessarily dodge it. Ooh, it's some poor movement there on my part. No big deal. Let's keep on moving along. And we're actually making some pretty decent time here. Get a good block in, hit him with the Crushing Tide, and now we can lay into him. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah, I actually took that extra damage on purpose just to be able to get an extra hit in. Because it does only last about 20 seconds, so now that extra speedy time is already gone. But that's okay, we took a huge chunk of health out of him for that. Come on. There it is. And maybe we can get him before he teleports away again. Come on. Ah, not quite. That's all right. A little bit of a trend here is that I keep having bosses get into one last cycle with barely any health left. Getting a little greedy. There we go. All right, and that's Galaxy Mage. He's actually such a powerful cosmic force that we don't kill him or anything. Once we defeat him, he just talks a little smack to us, tells us to be gone, pest. That's fine. He gave us what we needed, which was the key to get to the final area. One of the 3 keys we needed to get to the final area. We put on our haste aura, de-equip our bow so we can go back to using our combo finisher for that button, and we are moving on to the Dark Knight. Oh shoot, I actually really wanted to save and level up there. Yeah, I'm going to go back. Lose a little bit of time on loading screens here, but that's fine. Because we want to utilize this opportunity to level up. There we go. And we'll head on right over to the Dark Knight. To do that, we're going to go right past the locks, and there's a little warp area down there that's going to take us right back to Central Sanctuary. That would have been difficult to access earlier, but is super convenient for us now, so we just fly on back. And while we're traveling, this would be another time for, I'd say, about 2 donations. But for my lovely audience today, we're just going to take this portal to Central Sanctuary, which is kind of just out of view, up too high from where we bought our crow's feathers and our hammer, right there. Head on right back to the waterfall area. And we're going to drop down to a dark area. Now, casually, this part is really interesting because there's a bunch of bad guys here who are hard to see and you actually can't do any damage to unless you illuminate them by hitting them with a sunstone. We're not going to worry about any of that. We're just going to dash through, swing over to the right over here to get our quick book for the Dark Knight, do an extra 5% damage on him, run on down, dash through this last area, and we're done with it. So let's equip our Cusith Aura again so that we get the extra 5 Vitality and 50% Essence. Ione's going to talk to us about her storyline reason for how she has something to do with this boss, but this is a speed run, so we're not worried about that. It is really cool, though, and I recommend you play this casually to find out about it. Now, I'm watching to see kind of the stance that this boss takes before his attacks, because he sort of telegraphs what he's about to do. When he covers his face like that, I know I need to put my shield up, which I just failed to do, so I'm going to do a little bit of a safety heal right there. And otherwise, based on what he does, I know whether or not I have time to do a big combo finisher or just my quick overhead jump strikes. This is also a unique boss because when we beat him, he's actually not going to die yet. He's going to summon some guys that heal him, which is casually jaw-dropping and very frustrating. But we know we can just take him out super quickly, barely heal him, smack him a few more times, and that's the Death Knight. Use the opportunity while the next ability is coming to grab our next slot on our skill tree. Ione's going to drop down and try to give a storyline. We're going to skip it. We don't care what she has to say in the speedrun. And we're moving down to the next area. Now this is interesting. As you've seen, this whole game is castles and knights and medieval in theme, and suddenly we have a hologram talking to us, and things are starting to seem a little technological. There's a holographic Death Idol save point here. What's going on? So storyline wise, this area is kind of the secret lab where the source of immortality was created, which is very, very neat, and we barely touch on here in ending C, but is extremely important in ending A. And we come back through this area, fight a lot of really cool guys. There's a lot of exposition and storyline that's very cool casually that we're going to skip. I'm going to accidentally take a bunch of damage in this elevator. I'll heal up here in a bit. So this part, we're just kind of blow through an ending C. We do come back in ending A in a way that's very cool. There's a few rooms like this where there are some lights on the walls. You got to touch them all to activate the way out. We're going to continue dropping down more elevators. We're going to actually send it back up because right underneath it there's another Immortalite stone, so we'll have some more experience for that. And we're just kind of hoarding those right now because we don't need them right this second, and it's actually faster to just wait till kind of right at the very end to just use all the ones you've stored and level up a bunch of times before that last boss. Skip these guys. I had to activate a quick switch to light up the light floor and not just fall in a hole. Build up what we need to use our Crushing Tide to just smack that guy. Zip on past these traps that would have activated a laser beam. Try to dodge these rotating electric balls. Grab that energy shield. That energy shield is nice because what it does is that whenever we block an attack, all of our non-elemental damage goes up by 4%. And using this hammer, our damage is non-elemental, so that works out great. We just kind of have increased damage by 4% for about 15 seconds anytime that we block an attack. So that'll just kind of be a passive boost. It's not really something we go for intentionally super often, but we do a lot of blocking, so it's nice to just get that damage boost automatically. We're coming up to another point that can kind of be interesting for the fans. We're going to go down this elevator, and we're going to get ambushed by the next boss. It's not a real fight. We just have to do a certain amount of damage in order for him to go away, and then we'll fight him in earnest later. But if you don't do enough damage, then he just kind of keeps cycling until you do enough damage for him to go away. So we're going to drop down all these traps so that he'll eventually land right into it. And then here comes Bi-Surge, the lightning lurker, chasing after us down this elevator. Dramatic. We're just going to jump up and grab him a couple bops on the face. Earlier I was talking about how sweet doggos are and we don't fight doggos. As far as I'm concerned, canonically, this guy is not a doggo. He stands on his back legs and slashes like that. That's not something dogs do, so whatever this beast is, he's not a dog. He's Bi-Surge, and we're going to have to beat him up. Death himself comments about how long this elevator ride is, which is pretty neat. We're going to do a quick marathon safety save right there and zip on past this next area. We're going to dodge all these different moving electrics. We don't need to hit all those lights. All it does is activate a little map on the wall that shows us that there was that hole in the wall in the corner that we actually used to progress. And you'll notice that now we're glowing red. That means we are negatively charged, and things that are blue are positively charged. It's a little gimmick for this area where if you are the opposite polarity of an enemy, you do double damage to each other, and if you're the same polarity, you do half damage to each other. So that means enemies that are opposite color of you can hit really, really hard, but it works out really well against the boss in that we stay opposite polarity of him so that we do as much damage as possible to him, and then just try not to get hit so that we don't take double damage. We're going to do a safety save right before that boss, level up the one last time, and we are on our way to go fight Bi-Surge. a little bit of preparation in this area because he does a bit of chatting as we're going to quickly switch polarities and lay some traps. And then we have the opportunity to make sure our aura is equipped, pick any abilities from our skill tree if we haven't done so yet, because we've got some time here while he just teases us. And since we're not actually fighting him yet, he actually just stands on those traps and they don't trigger until the fight itself is triggered, which is just, you know, interesting. We won't worry about that. So he just stands on the traps and we wait for him. Oh, wait, yep, let's go ahead and equip that before I forget. I was getting a little distracted talking to you guys. And as soon as the boss starts, boop, now he takes a bunch of trap damage. And we are going to do our best to dodge his attacks and do these double damage opposite polarity hits as often as possible. And we're going to dodge roll, bam, through that big lightning blast. That's the big danger. We want to interrupt him using our Crushing Tide ability while he's charging up things in the background, because he can start to summon additional baddies, summon bombs to drop on our head. All those things are inconvenient and bad. So we want to use our Crushing Tide ability to interrupt him when he's charging things in the background, and we want to make absolutely sure that we dodge roll through his big lightning attack, because that actually hits us for a lot of damage. But so far so good. This is actually going very, very smoothly. Finish him off, and rather than watch him explode, we just Crow Feather on out of there. Now we do need to make sure we go back towards him for just a second, because we need to hit that trigger point, which allows our little friendo there to deactivate the door that was in the way of us progressing. Now we can drop down and progress. I always realize when I start dashing and I'm not going as fast as usual, it's my reminder to put my haste aura back on. And now we're in a creepy area. And this is definitively a creepy area. Don't worry, everything in this game is very PG-13. There's no cursing. There's no nothing that I think would be inappropriate for our audience on Twitch or on GDQ. But it certainly can get real, real creepy. You're going to see all kinds of dark stuff in the background. There's going to be some blood pools. It's Kool-Aid. It's ketchup. It's whatever you want to be. It's blood. It's fine. Move on right past that cutscene. Gonna fly up here and just move through this dark area. Casually, this is great because you hear skittering of bad guys in the dark ground, and you see them coming at you, and those bad guys can hurt you, and even though you can't see them, which is terrifying. But we're fast, so we dash through, we level up here, and we also make sure we save at this death idol, because we need to go collect a key to move on, and then rather than come all the way back, we are just going to Crow Feather back to that idol and save a bunch of time. We're going to fly our way through here, grab this book for the next boss, do an extra 5% damage to it, and casually you want to avoid all that red, because when you touch it, you take some damage. It's a little poisonous. But when we Crow Feather like that, we automatically full heal back at our save point anyway, so it's pretty inconsequential. That's what we needed the key for, was to open that gate, and we are moving just past all these bad guys. We don't need to worry about them. Dodge through some swinging blades. That's a fake death idol. If you try to save there, it actually gets up and starts attacking you, which is hilarious casually. Drop on down, equip the Cusathora again, because we are already at the Eldritch Council. Super dramatic sounding. And in the event that we're running this on stage and we have an ending A donation incentive, then the end of this boss is when that donation incentive would be cut off. At the end of this boss is where we need to either go and beat the game for ending C, or start forking off in a different direction to start going collecting heroic bosses to go earn ending A. And we have some time, because after this boss there's a big area that we need to fly through. As you may remember, on the way down we took a bunch of elevators down, 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 down. Now we'll need to fly back up after this boss, and so that'll leave time for the host to refresh the screen, see if we've met that donation incentive or not. And it's, again, the time that our path diverges. For this boss, there are 4 crystals. For each crystal, we need to destroy one. It summons one of these guys. We need to defeat it, and by the time we beat all 4, that's where the boss herself will drop on down right now. Zip on through, and now we just lay into her. There's kind of a lot happening at once. She summons these gravity pools. There's that ball right there that if we let it hit all the way to the bottom, it explodes. These creepy red guys will give us poison or madness, all which is bad. Love to see those red orbs fly just over my head so I don't have to worry about dashing through them. Ow. Ooh, let's not get poisoned. That would be real unfortunate. Just keep laying into her, hitting her with overhand slams, which do a lot of damage. And that beats the Elder's Council. Cool. So now we're going to have a little bit of storyline as we find the body of somebody very, very important. No spoilers, but a powerful moment casually. You start to hear this exposition of death. Again, phenomenal voice acting, kind of normalizing death being natural and something that happens. Powerful moment in the game. It's a bit lost on us in the casual run. Gives us just a second to equip the haste aura, and now we're going to fly back up. So while we're flying, this would be the time to either verify whether or not we've met the donation incentive for ending A, or just hear a couple of donations. And we're going to hear that taunting. That taunting you just heard right there, is actually the true boss of the game that we're not going to get to meet in this ending C run. We're just going to have to keep wondering. But if we do unlock ending A, that's when we find out who that is, go and challenge him. Things get crazy, trippy. It's awesome. I love it. I hope very much that we get a chance to see it. Now we unlock all these doors that are only unlockable from one side. Classic Metroidvania. And we just dash on through this area. So what's about to happen now is in another screen or two, we're going to just kind of dash through a little restaurant area from some locals called Fruipies. You hear this happy little restaurant music. We're not going to get to interact with anybody here, but if you get the chance, it's actually pretty funny. So here's this little happy elevator restaurant background music. Save at that death idol. That's very intentional because we are about to enter into a cutscene that is about a 3.5 minute unskippable cutscene. I mean, except that we're going to skip it. We open the door here now that we've gotten the 3 sigils from those 3 bosses. And then as this cutscene starts, we are going to very quickly have the opportunity to use a crow's feather as the screen fades out. Bam, right there. So now, instead of going into the cutscene, the game's like, oh, you used a crow's feather. We'll just take you back to your last death idol. But also, you already talked to Ash, that little dude you just saw, which means you must have already seen that cutscene. So cool. Now we can just dash right on through, skip all that. The ability we get afterwards is floating right there. In ending C, we do not need it. It's the ability to fast travel. But we would lose time getting it, activating it, seeing the description of it when we're not going to use it. In ending A, we absolutely pick that up because that is how we zip around and get to all the extra refights. We're getting to what is the most difficult part in the game for me. So we grab that feather or that flower to fly up here to the halfway point. And what we're designed to do is enter the castle there, go through several levels, fight a bunch of guys, takes a lot of time. Instead, we're going to save at that death idol, jump to this flower, immediately feather, and then mash as fast as humanly possible. It's actually a really tight window. Whew, got it. To fly all the way up to the top and skip all of that. It's an extremely tight window. And if you don't get it, it's not that big of a deal. We buy extra crow's feathers so that if we don't make it, we just drop back down and try it again. Under no circumstance are we actually going to work our way through that whole middle part of the castle. It would lose quite a few minutes. I mean, I suppose if we failed several times in a row, we would do it, but that's not going to happen. Instead, we just drop down if we need to, try again. We got it first try. And then we're going to fight this tinier version. Ow, get kicked in the face by this tinier version of the Forgotten Gaia that we fought earlier. That's that. And now we are moving into endgame. So we're getting probably about 5 minutes away from the end of the run as we get to this elevator. This is the final ascent. So this is where we're going to pick up the last of our Immortalite stones. This is where we make sure we have the last of our abilities equipped, which I should do, actually. There are 3 more Immortalite stones just kind of hidden over here off to the left. So we're going to grab those real quick. Got them. We're going to use them. So now we have all this experience. We're going to quickly make sure we have all of our abilities spent. We're going to level up. There we go. And now you can see this small child who's going to be in our path. This is Ash. Ash is going to tell us here in a minute. I want to make sure I've got everything equipped. We're going to equip the Fragile Courage again because we no longer need to worry about getting extra essence because this is the boss of the game. We want just a boost of vitality. Ash is going to tell us, don't beat the game yet. Go back. Prove to me you're worthy. Go refight previous challenges. Earn ending A. But we're not going to do that on this run. So this is the boss of the game. This is Endless. She's got several different forms. We're going to try our best to get some perfect blocks in, do as much damage as possible. For this first phase is actually where she has the most health. So the phases after this are even more quick. But for this first phase, we want to do the best we can to not have to heal because we get a free full heal after this first phase, which is great. Beautiful. She's going to teleport around, she's a fantastic swordsman, so it's kind of like a neat duel. And then after the first phase, we get a little cutscene of our childhood home, dramatic music, some more inspirational speech by Death, who's been our bro this whole game, and now we get to this final area. Jeez. There we go. She does those 3 attacks. As long as you block one of them, you're in good shape. If you fail to perfect block any of them, then we lose some time because she kind of runs off to the side and shoots some lasers at us. Not a big deal if it happens, but you want to see that block. There goes that. One more exposition where we find out the boss of the game's true identity. Spoiler alert. Go play the game and find out. And now there's 3 more versions of her that we have to beat, and then we're at endgame. So this is Sadness. They are all kind of the same thing, except they get a different sort of extra ability. For example, that one was a lightning ability. We just killed her before she had the chance to use it. Now we're going to fight Endless Fear, where she can summon some kind of black orbs that do some extra lightning damage to us if we let them get too big. We're going to mostly ignore them. I'm going to do a safety save here, just to make or a safety heal, just to make sure we're safe. Lay into Endless further. There's number 2, and now we're going to start opening up her final battle. This is against Endless Rage, where she's going to introduce some fire. Yeah, that annoying flame attack. That's okay, we're in good shape. And now she's just going to summon a bunch of fireballs at us. We're going to take a couple. Most we can just defeat by spinning to win this jump attack. We are nearing the end of the run here. She's down. All right. So time is going to be when we officially approach the source of immortality. About 10 seconds or so. Approach the source, and time. And that right there is Death's Gambit Afterlife Ending C. Pretty solid run. Again, a little bit slower than the PlayStation version, but not bad, just some longer loading screens, and again, much, much, much more marathon safe. I could in no way recommend the PlayStation version for a marathon setting. You just never know when it's going to crash on you. You never know when your game is actually not saving, even though you think it is, so that if you die and need to reload, you can't because your save file's not there. We don't want that. But on the Switch, it's extremely marathon safe. We've got backup saves. We can menu out if we need to. We've got a great run, a great game here for your consideration. It would be just the biggest privilege and honor to be able to see you all on the big stage and demonstrate this game that I, again, don't believe has been shown on the GDQ floor before, but is increasing in popularity. It was free on Epic a few weeks ago at the time that this was recorded, and we started seeing a lot more traffic in the Death's Gambit Discord and the speedrunning Discord and the subreddit, so a lot more people are starting to get into this game. It might be a wonderful time to consider it for the stage for that reason, but I humbly leave that to you, and I will end my video here. I hope to see you again on my Ending A submission. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video and consider this for GDQ, and I hope to see you soon. Until then, my name is Spicy Paladin. Thank you again. Don't forget to love each other, take care of one another, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.